What is going on, brothers and sisters? Eric Rosen here, your internal strength coach, here to show you how to overcome your greatest challenges so you can shine your brightest light. It is Thursday, January 3rd, 2019. Thank you for being here. Today I wanted to talk about emotions, specifically how quickly emotions can change, how it can seem like just on a dime throughout your day. You can be in a good mood one moment and be in the total opposite mood the next. This is something that I feel is especially relevant around this time of the year. Um, Even though we've come out of the darkest days of the year with the sun being out less, and the days are getting longer essentially, we're still in the thick of winter now, or heading into it. And so it brings about, seasonal affective disorder, brings about the winter blues, being cooped up in the house, for warmth, not getting out in the sunlight. All these things have an impact on your psyche and on your emotions. And so, the first thing I think to really understand is that when you're feeling an emotion, no matter what it is, whether it's good, bad, whether it's mild, extreme versions of good or bad, that you are not that emotion, that what you're feeling is not who you are, it's not what you've become. Because the thing is that if you were your emotions, think about how fickle and how fleeting you would actually be, that you would tell yourself that you are. Because emotions, they can just change so rapidly. I mean, how could anything that's so fleeting ever actually be what constitutes, your being, you as a person? So, you know, you got to be careful, because what happens a lot of times with this mindset is if we really indulge in the negative thoughts, the negative beliefs that come up, the negative emotions, is it can lead to this dark rabbit hole of thoughts where we essentially put ourselves like in a prison of our own mind, and we can become very sad, we can become depressed, especially around this time of the year. So it's really important to, nurture yourself around this time of the year. Checking your vitamin D levels is a big deal. I mean, I would highly recommend getting those checked out, supplementing if you have to. Really, the best form of vitamin D is just getting direct sunlight. I know even when it's cloudy out, even when it's cold out, the sun is still putting out UVB rays. Even though it is pretty chilly, I try to get out in the sun, or outside in direct sunlight, even if it's through the clouds, 40 minutes every day. And when I do this, I feel great, especially if I'm doing it consistently. So that's one way to nurture yourself. Nurturing yourself with high frequency foods and high frequency thoughts is another. So, organic, raw fruits, raw vegetables, not eating a bunch of processed foods, wheat, dairy, corn, just anything that, is just a real thick fat type of food, or just like really high in sugar that's not naturally occurring. And then your thoughts. You really got to catch yourself and realize that if a thought comes up, you almost have to be kind of the watcher of this thought coming up. This is really an Eckhart Tolle principle. If you haven't checked them out, you absolutely should. Where you kind of become the watcher of the thinker, where you're observing the fact that you're having this thought, that you're having this emotional reaction, and not to judge it as good or bad, because if you judge it as bad, whatever we resist persists. So meaning that resistance with condemning yourself for feeling a certain way is just going to create more of it, because your attention is essentially going towards that energy. So, when the thought comes up, become aware of it, just observe it, and essentially just not resist, allow it to dissipate. But then also realize too that there's this bigger picture of who you are, right? Because you are not your emotions. So therefore, always going back to what the original story is. The original story of who that you are in touch with as yourself, of who you are, your goals, the things that you're working towards, the fact that you know deep down that it does take time to build and manifest things, that at least at one point you had a lot of passion and fire energy about setting these goals and about pursuing them. So knowing that when you have the thoughts or that you make the mistakes, like you don't become those things. So just, I don't know, it really seemed relevant. Just as I noticed that when I wasn't paying attention to my vitamin D levels, not getting out in the sun, not being perfectly on my diet, that there were some there was some sad feelings coming up. And at first I thought that maybe it was because, I mean, we have to take into account the metaphysical aspect as well as the physical, right? So I could have written it off as, oh, I'm moving through some shadow work, I'm releasing some trapped emotions, or this is coming from a specific transit going on in astrology. But I don't ever venture too far off into this invisible spiritual world where I forget that we exist in in a physical body. And ultimately the physical manifestation of what you see here was just a creation from this kind of invisible realm anyway, but that's a whole nother topic. But what it came down to is that supporting it from all facets. So it's supporting your mental state, it's supporting your spiritual state, you should definitely have one, and it's supporting your emotions that come up, being compassionate with yourself as well as your thoughts, and then the physical, supporting it with the physical as well. So really, this is a really crucial time of the year to really take a hard look at your health. I know there's people out there that will be kind of looking at the calendar as kind of like, okay, it's January, I put on a few pounds over the holidays, I'm kind of busy at work, the year's kicking off, maybe in a couple of weeks or something. Yeah, maybe in a couple of weeks I'll start that gym membership, or I'll start that diet, or I'll do something that I know I need to do to take care of myself, because then because I got time, I got the spring will roll around. But the thing is that waiting to do that so that you can like look good for the spring, like no, fuck that. Like, take your health into your own hands now. Like, who cares what you look like with your shirt off or in a swimsuit? Like, right now we're talking about taking care of like your mental health primarily, your mental emotional health during the winter time. So this is going to be a little bit different for everybody on what they need, but in general, good foods, still getting some light exposure of some sort. You can purchase a SAD lamp, a seasonal affective disorder lamp, if you're not a fan of getting out in the colder weather, and just creating, like, knowing what the original story is of your life, like knowing the story, and hopefully it's a healthy one. If not, you really need to dig deep down on that. If you've got like a real negative belief structure about who you are, if you think you're a bad person, you really need to get in and look at that shit. But don't let the season, don't let the thoughts, don't let the being cooped up in the house get you down. And one final thing I did want to say, because this is so counterintuitive to our culture, we think that getting outside and being in the cold makes us sick. It's actually being cooped up and not being outside that's making us sick. It's not natural. It's not the cold air. There's nothing about cold air that like makes you sick unless you're just not dressed properly and you're staying out there for extended periods. But even then, like, there's people like the Iceman, like Wim Hof, like another great person to look up. and the huge following of people. They're doing cold therapy where they're doing ice baths, and they're going out in the snow. And these people, they get so highly skilled at cold therapy that they can actually sit and meditate in the snow, not shiver, and actually melt the snow around them. Okay, so if you um, want to know like what we're actually really capable of, and what's, actual myth about getting sick out in the cold, and then also, like I said, coupling on top of that, like the amazing things that we can actually do that we didn't know that we could, like that. I mean, that's awesome. But original point is, it's not the cold. It's not the cold air that is going to make you sick. It's being cooped up in the house. It's not getting light exposure. Um, it's about the hibernation of winter. Like people, especially, I feel like these 2 months, February especially, has this like feel to it where it's like a month of like around here in the Midwest where it's still very cold. Um, Everyone just wants winter to be over. I think people are kind of maybe waiting to come out in the springtime. So not socializing, not having human contact, that's going to be another big one. So make sure you're still getting your socializing in positive environments. So that's it, guys. That's what I'm going to roll with today. Um, just realize that these emotions, they can flip on a dime, and that especially around this time of the year, it's something really crucial to be paying attention to. All right, I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Take care.